For this video today, I'm just going to do a continuation of the video that I started yesterday, explaining why I believe in God and I now believe in the Bible. And you know, like I've explained before, I think I used to really want to believe in God, but I don't know if I actually really did believe in God, and I definitely didn't believe in the Bible. But now I'm starting to believe in both God and the Bible, and obviously Jesus Christ as well. And my logic to this is, well, actually I've got quite a few reasons for this. I spend a lot of time when I'm not working listening to Christians debate atheists, or Christians debate Muslims, or Jehovah's Witnesses, or whatever they're debating. I like to listen to them. And you know, I tried to go in totally unbiased, and especially at the start I was literally totally unbiased. But as time's gone on, and I've listened to more and more, and I've seen more and more evidence, I'm beginning to come to the conclusion. I've actually come to the conclusion that the Christians are right about most things. They've got the most logical arguments out of everybody. I mean, like I say, yesterday, like I explained in another video, I heard one atheist say that if you see John and Mary written in the sand, that the sea might have done that. I mean, how could that possibly happen? How can the sea possibly write words in the sand? But that was his argument, because he didn't want to admit that, you know, information, and the information that is in our DNA must have come from an intelligent force. I've always put it like this to people when I'm trying to explain to people that don't believe, which is a lot of people around me that don't believe in God. I always put it like this: when you play the game Grand Theft Auto, or any video game, but when you play, let's say, Grand Theft Auto, you look at that game, and the second you turn it on, you know that that has been created by an intelligent designer, by an intelligent design, because it couldn't have been any other way. Because if it was just a load of random code and a load of random numbers and all this, it wouldn't be a functional game. You wouldn't be able to play the game. It would just be an absolute mess. The graphics would be all over the place, the controls would be all over the place. So it's very similar to actual reality in a way. Obviously everything is just perfectly set up for us to live in these conditions, in this world. The conditions are absolutely perfect for us to live in, that we're at the Goldilocks everything, not just the Goldilocks temperature, you know, everything is set up ideally for us to live here, because the temperature is just one part of it. Then you've got we've got oxygen so we can breathe, and we've got everything is all set up. We've got days and nights, so we've got order. Everything is in order. But order does not usually come from chaos. Mess and chaos come from chaos. Order comes from intelligence. So how can this world not be created? How can it not be created by intelligent design? Because there's too much order to it for it to be any other way. I mean, one single blood cell, which you know, a tiny little blood cell inside your body has more information in it than 3 encyclopedias combined, 3 big encyclopedias. So it's like, you know, how do you think that got there? Do you know what I mean? How does chaos allow that to be what it is, and for that to build you sort of thing? Do you know what I mean? Like, everything is in order, and the only way that you could possibly get this order is through some sort of an intelligent design, which even people like Richard Dawkins have admitted later, but he still won't admit that it could possibly be God. And instead he starts speaking about potentially it could be some super advanced species of alien. He starts talking about he starts saying the sort of thing that people was laughed at for saying 15-20 years ago, for talking about aliens, and now you've got people like Richard Dawkins reduced to that because it's the only idea that he can come up with. And I think his name's John Lennox, ain't he? I think he was debating John Lennox, and he was getting absolutely annihilated in that debate as well, because it obviously makes absolutely no sense at all that deep complex codes that are so complex that even our most advanced AI machines can't decipher them is not chaotic. Obviously it cannot possibly be. Like I say, you don't look at a video game and think, well, that wasn't created by somebody, that's just a load of chaos that's been put together, and now we've got a game out of it. That doesn't work like that, and nothing works like that. So these atheists, in some ways, believe the most far-fetched ideas out of all of the people, and yet they accuse us of believing far-fetched ideas. It is really quite ironic. But another thing that has pushed me towards believing in God recently is good and evil. Can good and evil exist without God? Can sin exist without God? I mean, most people in the world believe in good and evil, and most people in the world believe in the idea of sin. I mean, I googled it, and the definition of sin, according to the dictionary, the top result that Google given me, was an immoral act considered to be a transgression against divine law. Well, if it's against divine law and you don't believe in the divine, then obviously you don't believe in the divine law, do you? Which means you don't believe in sin. And I asked AI some interesting questions about sin, and it gave me some quite interesting answers about sin. I'll just load it up on my phone now. So I asked AI, is murder a sin? And the answer it given me is, yes, murder is considered a sin in the Bible. And then it says it's the sixth commandment. The Bible's sixth commandment states, thou shalt not murder. And then it gives you the definition of murder. Then it gives you the definition of capital punishment. And then it says exceptions to murder. And it says, the Bible recognises situations where killing is not considered murder, such as self-defense or when your own life is in danger. So AI has got all of its answers there from the Bible, every single one of them. Now, why is that? Because the Bible is where we get our ideas of sin from, because God put his ideas of sin in the Bible. God give us the law of what sin is in the Bible. So then I thought this will be an interesting question. I asked Google's AI, is homosexuality a sin? And AI wouldn't even answer this question, but it put me onto a Wikipedia page. The top answer was taken off Wikipedia, and it says most denominations teach that homosexual behaviours and acts are sinful, talking about the church. So it doesn't actually explicitly say yes, homosexuality is a sin like it does with murder, but it does say that that most churches consider it to be a sin, and the reason most churches consider it to be a sin is because the Bible considers it to be a sin. So I asked if bullying was a sin, and again, AI didn't actually give me an answer to this one. It just says bullying behaviours are usually repeated behaviours and can have an impact and can have tragic results. Bullying is a sin, and through the Bible, God has given us instructions on how to respond. So I thought, well, is stealing a sin? So I asked, is stealing a sin? And yes, AI answered, yes, stealing is considered a sin in the Bible and is one of the 10 commandments. Again, the answer comes from the Bible, and you've got to remember this is AI answering this. And AI can get any single source off the internet, and yet it keeps going to the Bible for this, because that is where the idea of sin comes from. So I asked if swearing was a sin, and its AI answers this, and it says, the Bible contains many passages that discourage swearing and unwholesome speech, but the Bible's focus is on the quality and impact of words, rather than labelling specific words as sinful. Now again, I think that makes absolute sense, obviously. And I've always thought that, and I've always said that. I've always said, if you say to somebody, I fucking hate you, then that is pretty sinful, isn't it? I mean, you're saying that you hate somebody, and hate is obviously a sin. If you say to somebody, I fucking love you, then that isn't sinful. That's a nice thing to say to somebody, even though there is a swear word in it. The only swear words, the only curse words that the Bible commands that we don't use is actually the name of God as a curse word, which is really ironic, because a lot of people that swear, or a lot of people that don't swear, tend to use God as a curse word instead, as a substitute curse word. So I asked if gambling was a sin, and it says the Bible does not explicitly prohibit gambling, but it does contain some principles that can help guide our understanding of it, and it says the love of money, stewardship ideology, and superstitions and stuff. So many gamblers are superstitious. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say gambling is a sin because it doesn't really hurt anybody, but at the same time, well, the only person it hurts usually is the person who is gambling, unless the rare occasion comes at the win. So it all makes pretty much sense. There's nothing too far-fetched here when you start looking at it. So then I asked twice, and it come out with two different answers actually. So I asked, who decides what sin is? And the answer come up: according to Christians, God is the sole authority to define sin and pronounce guilt. However, some argue that sin does not exist and contributes nothing towards our understanding of morality. So actually, I think, I can't see the full question I asked because I can only see the beginning of the question on the search. I think I asked there, who decides what a sin is if God isn't real? I think that's why it's answered it like that, because later on I ask, who decides what a sin is? And it says, according to the Bible, God defines what a sin is through his law, which reflects his holy nature. The Bible provides several definitions of sin, including, and then it gives you a list: whatever is not from faith is sin. Therefore, to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him is a sin. So obviously, I think most of it is pretty much common sense, and we already know, like the Bible says, it's written in our hearts. God has written it in our hearts. We already know the difference between right or wrong. We don't actually need to read the Bible to understand the difference of right or wrong, because that's one of the first things that we learn. I mean, I think even most children know the difference between right and wrong. I mean, obviously there is certain children that might not, especially mentally challenged children, but I don't know what age you get to when you start to understand that. But yeah, so the question I've got is really to atheists and to non-believers is, how can you believe in sin without God, and how can you believe in evil without sin? Now some people might try to claim that that evil is a construct of the intelligent human mind, or others might try to say it's a societal construct. But the trouble is with that is, if people make the rules of what sin is and what sin isn't, then sin is nothing more than a subjective opinion with no definitive answer of what's right or wrong, which means it cannot possibly be wrong to sin or to murder or to do anything, because why would it be wrong? I mean, obviously it's really just common sense. So without God there can be no good and evil. So if you do believe in good and evil, then in some way you believe in God. You're already halfway there. It's just that you're not equating it to God. You're not seeing it for what it actually really is. Like I say, I mean, everybody is, if without God and you allow people to decide what sin is, then everybody's going to have totally different ideas, and nobody would be in the position to say, well, that idea is right and that idea is wrong, because at the end of the day, they're not God. They're not above other people. So I don't believe the Bible is there to tell us what sin is, and God didn't allow the Bible to go out there because he wanted us to know what sin was. We already knew what sin was. The reason that the Bible is out there and the reason that Jesus sacrificed himself for us is because he saved us from sin. He saved us from the penalty of sin. Now the Bible claims that we've known about sin since our earliest beginnings. Adam and Eve, after they ate from the tree of knowledge, they learnt the difference between good and evil. They realised they was naked, and the act of eating from the tree of knowledge was sinful, and the reason it was sinful is because it was against God's commands. And by them being sinful, they brought sin into the world, which was brought into the world even more by Cain, who then murdered. And since then, sin went totally out of control in the world. Even the angels were sinning. In fact, obviously the angels were sinning in the Garden of Eden, if you interpret the serpent as some kind of angel, which I'm not sure about. Obviously, I don't know. I mean, Genesis is written in a almost poetic sort of a way sometimes, so we don't know if it literally means sometimes exactly what it's saying, or if obviously there's many different writing styles in the Bible, because there's many different writers of the Bible. I mean, every writer has a different writing style. But then, like I say, if we allow humans to decide what is sin and what isn't sin, then what we end up with is an imperfect version of sin. And you know, it's I always put it like this. I mean, obviously, if a lion, you know, kills lion cubs from a different pride, it's not actually a sin, because how can a lion possibly understand what sin is? And if you don't understand what sin is, then how can you sin? So humans have got like that as a disadvantage. So in a way it's an advantage, probably, because it probably comes with other forms of intelligence, but at the same time it's a big disadvantage, because it's actually made us more susceptible to be punished for sin. I also asked AI if AI can decide what sin is, but AI didn't answer that question. And obviously, I know the answer anyway. The answer is obviously no. AI cannot decide what a sin is. And the reason that AI cannot decide what a sin is because, for a start off, AI has absolutely no human emotion, no experience of living, and no empathy. God has all of them things. So, you know, AI in the past has actually recommended people that have been depressed and put it into AI for advice. They've actually recommended suicide. I mean, that's because AI is looking at everything from a super logical sort of point of view, with no other, no empathy in it, nothing like sympathy or anything of the sort, or you know, or even understanding of what that's going to do to everybody else around you. You know, AI is not capable of thinking like that, because AI is not biological. It's never lived. It's never actually felt pain. It's never, you know, experienced anything of the sort. But obviously most scientists believe, like I keep saying, that the universe is nothing but chaos and the survival of the fittest, and there is no order. But the only trouble is to that idea is, if there's no order, then there can't be no sin. If everything is chaos and it's all survival of the fittest, then surely nobody can have any sort of moral objection to murder, because it's just survival of the fittest and nothing else. So if, like I keep saying, if you don't believe in the divine, you can't believe in the divine law. And a lot of atheists even come to the conclusion, because of this, that there can be no such thing as sin, because of these things. Do you know what I mean? Because that if everything is just survival of the fittest, and the whole universe is just a chaotic mess, and we're just there floating in all this chaos, then obviously how can anything like sin, murder, stealing, lying, or anything be anything? It can't be good and it can't be bad, because there is no good and bad. It's just another way of surviving. But we all know realistically that that's not the case, even atheists. And this is why the Christians and the believers in God are now winning the debate, because atheists, even the most intelligent of them all, are really struggling to actually answer these kind of questions. They're struggling to answer questions about, you know, the fact that everything is perfect for us to live in, the fact that, you know, one single cell has got all this data in it. You know, your body has got more data in it than, you know, probably the most advanced computers by far. You know, like, it's not even comparable, like, sort of thing. We're much more advanced than any computer that is out there. All a computer can do is process, look at numbers and data and stuff, and kind of repeat, whereas we are capable of feeling emotions, feeling guilt. You know, why do we feel guilt if there's no sin? We only ever feel guilt when we know that we've done something wrong, and that leads to guilt. If we didn't understand sin, then we could not possibly feel guilt. I doubt very much that lions and tigers feel guilt when they kill baby animals to eat. You know, the last thing on their mind is guilt. But we, as a species, do feel guilt, and we even feel guilt about things. I mean, you know, I eat meat, but even I wouldn't want to see, you know, I worked in a slaughterhouse a very, very long time ago when I was very young, and you know, there's nothing worse than seeing animals be killed, especially like, you know, sheep or baby lambs and stuff, you know, lamb, because it's a, you know, it's a totally innocent animal that's dying for us to survive. But eating meat and killing animals to survive is obviously not a sin, even though sometimes it does feel sinful or it feels wrong. But at the same time, it is about our survival in that instance, and we are human. And you know, I know some people don't like to admit it, but we are above animals in that order. I mean, obviously, a baby human is more important than most animals, because of the fact it is human. You know, obviously there is animals that are very small, short in numbers at the moment, and you could argue that maybe, you know, they're more important than one individual human at the moment because of the numbers being so low, but that's mainly because of the negative impact of humans. But yeah, that's basically it anyway. You know, I thought the AI results was interesting, the fact that everything was coming from the Bible and nothing else. You know, there was no other sources given. But yeah, thanks for watching and thanks for listening, and thank you. Bye.